What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another video. Today's June 13th, 2025. We've got war in the Middle East still ongoing, and gold's breaking out again, silver's breaking out. Let's talk about it. First off, if you like these videos, please like, subscribe, check out my website. It's in the link in the description below. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research and get a financial advisor before doing anything like buying gold, silver, or following any of the stuff I discuss on the channel. So, yeah, we got gold's approaching 3,500 again. Silver is still above 36, hasn't quite gotten past 37. But yeah, man, it's some pretty wild stuff happening. Of course, anytime there's anything going on in the Middle East, gold spikes. So does oil. So we're seeing a lot of the fallout from that this morning, and I'm just thankful that I own gold and silver, and some oil investments as well. So again, man, you gotta prepare, when you can for when we're in a situation where shit hits the fan like what we're seeing, and gold is fast becoming unaffordable for the vast majority of people out there. And that's a shame. Just a few years ago, you were able to get gold at literally half the price it is today. And unfortunately, the way things are going, I don't see gold, at least in the long term, going back down to the lows that we saw, just a few years ago. Short term, we may get some corrections here and there, but now silver's moving, the miners are moving. So, yeah, man. I ended up buying a bit more silver there the other week. I picked up a kilo bar, and yeah, I'm pretty stoked and excited to get that. And what I did was I had some paper profits in some paper gold and some of the miners and that, and I decided to sell a little bit and get this kilo bar. So I'm basically taking paper profits and turning it into real physical metal. And yeah, I'm happy that I can do that. This stuff I've always said is sort of a long-term insurance policy, and the longer we go, the more apparent it's becoming to everybody that this system is failing. And, we saw Elon Musk the other week come out and break with Trump, saying basically the government's incapable of cutting any spending. Doge was supposed to, save $1 trillion in waste, and instead, maybe they get 100 billion. And the fact of the matter is, governments, particularly Western governments, can't cut. They can't cut their spending. They need that constant flow and stimulus into the economies, and because it's basically all a Ponzi scheme. If once that government money stops, once the debt growth stops, once the central bank easing and stuff like that, once that all kind of goes away, the system basically implodes. And beneath that debt, what's underlying all of that debt is just paper claims and promises from a broke, bankrupt government that has been incapable of balancing the books for as long as anybody's been alive. Basically, it's crazy. And in Canada, we're not much better off. We're just as bad, really. So I don't really see anything disrupting the long-term bull market in precious metals, possibly in Bitcoin. Certainly, non-Western nations have voted with their dollars to buy gold, silver, platinum. All of that stuff is going up. People don't want paper anymore. They want real physical things. And, inflation's not going away. We still have inflation. All of this outsourcing and, You know, I just don't see how they're going to bring back manufacturing and without massive inflation. It just uh, everything, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess it depends on kind of where you stand. But um, I view all of this stuff as basically a net negative for Western countries and average everyday people. And, basically, I don't see the world going back to the way it once was. What do I mean by that? I don't see the United States and China reconciling with one another. I think this is a split that's gonna last for a while. Maybe this is a new Cold War. I just don't see, um, not just the U.S. but other Western democracies relying on Chinese goods for a lot of their key critical um, resources and stuff like that. It's just not going to happen. So more and more, you guys are going to want to own some gold and silver. More and more, this as we continue on down this sort of depressing road, it's just everything just keeps pointing to inflation. So that said, if you're prepared, if you own some real physical wealth, gold, silver, maybe you grow some of your own food. I just think people are going to need to be a lot more resilient than they have been. And that means kind of being your own central bank, owning gold. Everybody should be buying at least some gold. People should own at least a little bit of gold. When you think about how we conceive of our wealth in the Western world, it's all stock market, bond market, it's all these paper assets. And on paper, we look very wealthy. But, markets can go down and they can stay down for quite a lengthy period. And there is, potential for catastrophic losses, particularly as we're moving towards retirement. Some of you who aren't moving towards retirement, maybe it's a bit less of a pressing issue for you if you don't have very much wealth. Maybe you don't need as much protection, but I do think, if you can talk to the average Turk or Lebanese or Venezuelan and say, when your country began down this path, would you have been happy to own a little bit of physical gold and silver and possibly some Bitcoin as well? And I'm sure, I'm certain that they would say, oh, hell yes. You need this. And, the way the world is going, there's war. It's not just the Middle Eastern wars. It could be U.S.-China confrontation, which would completely upend the entire world order. So how do you protect yourself from that? I mean, I don't think stocks are really going to offer much protection in that kind of a world. I think you need hard physical assets outside of any sort of system that you own. It's in your own possession. You have control over. And maybe when the dust settles and the smoke clears, you're going to come out and we're going to be able to convert our hard-earned money into something that maybe we want more. Maybe it's farmland, maybe it's an apartment building or some sort of real estate or whatever. So ultimately, that is kind of where I'm at anyways. That's kind of what I see. And yeah, I just keep on stacking. I've been buying a lot of silver. Gold's sort of gotten away. It's hard to spend, money on gold at all-time highs. But, silver's still down in well below its all-time high, and now we're seeing a rush of people into physical silver, particularly in Asia. Not so much yet in North America or even Western Europe, but you know, to each his own. You got to be prudent, and you need to look out for yourself. No financial advisor is ever going to tell you to put a dime into gold or silver, and they just want you to keep funneling money their way. And unfortunately, I think this is, we could really get a rug pull here, and people could be wiped out. And it's that very reason, or even just, the possibility of such a eventuality, that I own gold, silver, just as an insurance. And, as year after year, as, the net worth grows, I make sure that the stack of gold and silver also grow commensurate with that, because it's insurance. Like, what is the price of that insurance? If all of your financial assets, go down for an extended period of time, sometimes the markets have been down and haven't recovered for 20, 25 years. That's basically an entire retirement for somebody approaching that stage of their life. So I just look at that stuff and say, like, if that happens, would we be okay? Do we have other assets? Rental property, was once, this great investment, and it's, the best thing ever. And, there's no way you can lose. And I just look all over the place. Landlords are vilified. Tenants are taking advantage. They're not paying their rent. And, there's nobody looking out for the landlords. It's just not the investment that you want to be in. I think, what's happened with real estate, which was, at least in Canada, a huge speculative bubble. It's burst. There's real pain out there. Landlords aren't getting paid. Their units are falling in value. Nobody wants to buy them. And it's just all of this stuff. You're going to have to go back to basically get yourself some gold, get yourself some silver, and, try to wait things out. I mean, I don't even pretend to have all the answers, but I do know, if you want to sleep at night, you need to have some hard assets, because what's coming is more spending, more debt, more QE, more all the same crap. And we're going to have inflation, whether or not the government's going to want to admit it. So anyways, that's my video today. I wish I was more upbeat. I'll probably be a lot more upbeat once I get that silver bar there next week. And yeah, I just hope you all are well. Hope you are all, paying off your debt, getting out of debt. Stop being a slave to the system, and get some real assets like gold and silver to protect yourself. That's the basically best thing you can do right now, as far as I'm concerned. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Please like, subscribe, check out my Road to Wealth and Freedom. Link is down below in the description. Have a good weekend.